to all the dispossessed youth of Africa, for perpetuation of communion with ancestral spirits through the fight for African freedom, and in the firm faith that the dead, the living, and the unborn will unite to build the destroyed shrines. Selah. Hello and welcome, beloveds, to another episode of Wake Up Africa. My name is Dr. Mumbi Saraki. How you doing? How's everything going? I really do pray that you are well in all your ways and that you're moving into living life truly on your own terms, in your own narrative. And I keep stressing the importance of us having our own narrative, beloveds. It is absolutely everything, but those are definitely stories. Well, they're stories for right now as well. But you know, I've talked about this, and I'll never get tired of talking about this. And you know, today, I actually bring to your attention a very sternly put open letter that the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Abiy Ahmed, has sent to Joe Biden. And this was after Joe Biden actually, threatened new sanctions on the Ethiopian government over what's happening in the Tigray region, basically northern Ethiopia. And what happens is that these sanctions have really been used to slow down a lot of big nations that were doing big things. And, this whole situation, regardless of what it's saying, and my condolences to the families that have lost their innocent loved ones in this whole situation. And I did do a show on it where there's a rebel faction that is wants to separate itself from the rest of Ethiopia, and there's been a lot, and then Abiy Ahmed actually sent the military into the region, into the Tigray region last November. And so there's been a lot of tension. It's been going on for the last 10 months. But remember, beloveds, that most of the chaos that we see on our lands is not manufactured locally. It comes from, it has an international root, beloveds, or there is an international hand that is playing, chess with it. And let's not forget, you always have to look at these stories from the bigger picture and not look at the immediate fear-mongering narrative that the Babylon newspapers and the mainstream media propaganda tries to feed us. Because don't forget, beloveds, before the pandemic in 2019, Ethiopia had taken off like a jet. They had literally just, completed their dam. They did the first dam filling, and it was absolutely controversial. Egypt didn't want them to build the dam. Sudan, they tried to bribe Sudan to not allow them to build the dam. Egypt actually went to Trump, and Trump even released words that Egypt could bomb the dam. I mean, because it was a game changer, and it was going to take Ethiopia into the next level. Then all of a sudden, beloveds, just a coincidence that there'd be chaos and unrest in Ethiopia? And not to say that Abiy Ahmed's, prime ministership or whatever you call it, has been peaceful. I mean, he has faced several assassination attempts. Some people have even sent me emails saying he was chipped, but those are stories, for other days. So we have to learn to look at the big picture and not get too emotionally involved in, unfortunately, the collateral damage of the innocent people that are involved, so that you can see who is really trying to orchestrate this. Because now all of a sudden, order out of chaos, that is the whole recipe. And many people don't know this, but the last kind of standing nations, beloveds, were Tanzania and Ethiopia. Both of them because they had their own language and their own culture that was impenetrable to Babylon. Most people in Tanzania don't speak English. Most people in Ethiopia don't speak English or any colonial tongue. They have their own language, their own culture, their own TV, their own vibes. And so there was very little penetration, only maybe on the level of the middle and upper class. But for the majority of people, they were just in their nation. And so their minds were protected, beloveds. And there was a lot of criticism actually when Abiy Ahmed wanted to open up the telecom industry to Westerners and all of these other government held industries in order to generate funds. It ended up going to Kenya, stories for other days. But it was like they were able to control their narrative and keep their people in this narrative without allowing those foreign voices in. So, in response to this, and we rarely see this, so big up to Abiy Ahmed, regardless of what you think is going on in his country, for even having the kahunas to write such a strongly worded letter. And he said, and he talks a lot about, he went into the history of Ethiopia and how Ethiopia was now, and what's been happening in the Tigray region, the unrest that is there. And he says, and he talks about like he goes in. I'll actually leave a link to this, but the most important thing he says is how Biden is acting on a false narrative that is being pumped by international organizations for their own good. And let's not forget, before I even read it word for word, let's not forget, beloveds, that the head of the World Health Organization was actually accused by Ethiopia of also funding the rebels to kind of destabilize the nation. And was he being used as a foreign puppet? I didn't follow the story much after that. I think he tried to deny it, etc., etc. But he says, he talked about how the American people and the rest of the Western world are being misguided by the reports, narratives, and data distortions of global entities many believe were driven to help impoverished countries like mine, yet have in the past months portrayed victims as oppressors and oppressors as victims through partisan narratives and bankrolled networks. History always smiles upon those who have stood for the truth, and so I am certain that the truth will shine upon this proud nation of Ethiopia. But it shows you, beloved, how important the narrative is. And when a foreigner has your narrative in their hand, they can literally destabilize your country, create regime change, while making the people of that nation actually believe that it was their idea. You get people emotional, like, oh, this is happening, all these people are dying, but we don't have, can we really trust our journalists, beloved? Can we really trust their narrative? And he says, and he talks about how many Ethiopians and Africans were excited about Biden coming, but he's turned into like a worse nightmare than Trump. And many people don't know. Biden is Obama 3.0, beloveds. You don't know? Anyway, let me just leave it there. And he talks about how African nations that have broken free from the shackles of colonialism starting from the 1950s have continued to resist the chains of neocolonialism. This is so important. This is a prime minister of a nation, like basically revealing what they've been dealing with. And he says, that is manifesting itself in various overt and covert ways. Despite escaping the yokes of colonialism, Ethiopia now struggles with its mutation. As a founding member of the United Nations and the Organization for African Unity, Ethiopia remains a proud nation that through its sons, daughters, and kinship with other African nations is determined to meet our current challenges with resilient and indomitable spirit that defines this great nation. So it looks like Abiy Ahmed has decided he's not going to bow. He's not going to bow to what they're trying to do. He's going to stand firm. And we know what's been happening to any African president that stands firm. I'm not sure what's happening in terms of, the pandemic and what stance he's taken on that. But this just opened my eyes to the kind of crazy challenges, beloveds, that our presidents face. Like, even if you enter there, wanting to transform your country and do all these amazing things, like if they see that you're too much for your people and against them, they will create regime change. And it's because we've allowed them into our nations. And Abiy Ahmed did pursue like a democratization of Ethiopia, opening Ethiopia up much more than it was before. So is that what is coming right back to, bite him in the behind? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Tuko pamoja.